smiled more in those 3 weeks than he had in the entire previous year. Perry and I had a conversation after the birthday dinner that I keep thinking about. We were sitting on my couch that night. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from adrenaline, from 10 years of watching my sister operate and finally watching it stop. Perry handed me a glass of water and waited. I said, "Do you think I was wrong for planning it?" He said, "Planning what?" I said, "For telling you about Dove ahead of time and letting her walk into it. For knowing exactly what she'd do and positioning you to call it out." He thought about it for a second. He said, "You didn't make Dove do anything. You told me your sister had a pattern of hitting on your family's partners. I watched her do exactly that, twice. And then I described what I saw. You didn't make her flirt with me. You didn't make her tell me you were a lot to handle. You didn't make her put her hand on my arm. She chose all of that. You just decided that this time someone would be watching when she did it. That's not a setup. That's a witness." I've turned that line over in my head 100 times since he said it, because that's exactly what it was. For years, Dove operated in gaps. She did her worst when the right people weren't looking, or when the people who saw it were too tired or too afraid to say something. All Perry did was stay in the room with his eyes open and then describe what he saw. That's not manipulation. That's just refusing to be complicit. 3 weeks after the birthday dinner, Dove broke the silence. She didn't text the group. She called our mom. I heard about the call secondhand. Apparently Dove cried for 45 minutes. She said she was lonely. She said she didn't know why she did what she did. She said she was afraid that nobody in the family actually liked her, and that trying to prove she could get attention from other people's partners made her feel like she mattered. Our mom listened, and then said something I genuinely didn't think she had in her. She said, "Dove, feeling insecure doesn't give you the right to hurt people, and the fact that you're telling me this now instead of the people you actually hurt tells me you're still looking for someone to make it okay. It's not okay. You need to talk to your sister. You need to talk to Remy. You need to talk to Gage. And you need to talk to Lennox." Dove apparently went silent and then hung up. She didn't call anyone else for another week. When she finally did reach out, it wasn't to me. It was to Gage. She called him on a Wednesday night and said she was sorry about Lennox. She said she knew what she'd done at Thanksgiving was wrong, and she knew it contributed to the breakup. She said she was starting therapy. Gage told me about the call the next day. He said it was short and awkward, and he didn't know if he believed her yet, but at least she'd said the actual words. She called Remy next. That conversation was harder. Remy told me Dove cried the entire time and kept saying she didn't remember trying to kiss Remy's husband. Remy said it doesn't matter if you remember. He remembers. I remember. He called me from a parking lot shaking because your sister cornered him in a hallway and he didn't know how to tell me without blowing up the family. You put him in that position. You put me in that position. Dove didn't push back on that. She just said, "I'm sorry." Remy said, "I don't forgive you yet, and I need you to hear that and not make it about your feelings." Dove said, "Okay." That was apparently the end of the call. 4 minutes total. Remy told me she sat in her car afterward for 20 minutes and just breathed. She said it was the first time in 3 years that the weight of carrying that secret wasn't on her shoulders anymore. Dove called me last. It was a Saturday morning, and Perry was making breakfast in my kitchen when my phone rang. I answered, and Dove said, "I need to talk to you." I said, "Okay." She said, "I know what I've been doing. I know it's a pattern. I know I hurt Gage and Remy, and I know I tried to do it to you." She paused. I didn't fill the silence. She said, "Perry seems like a really good guy, and I'm sorry I tried to get between you." I said, "Thank you." She said, "Are we okay?" I said, "No, not yet. But you're doing the right thing by calling, and if you actually stick with therapy and actually change how you treat people, we can get there." She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "That's fair." We hung up. Perry set a plate of eggs in front of me and said, "How'd it go?" I said she apologized. He said, "Do you believe her?" I looked at him, at this man who didn't rescue me or fight my battles, but stood next to me while I fought my own. And I said, "I don't know yet, but I believe she's scared, and scared is the first step before